Today let's talk about 2025 ACC, AHA, ACEP, NAMES, SCAI Guideline for the Management of Patients with Acute Coronary Syndromes, a report of the American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association Joint Committee on Clinical Practice Guidelines. The top take-home messages from the guidelines are: 1. Dual antiplatelet therapy is recommended for patients with acute coronary syndromes. Ticagrelor or prasugrel is recommended in preference to clopidogrel in patients with acute coronary syndromes who are undergoing percutaneous coronary intervention. In patients with non-ST segment elevation, acute coronary syndromes who are scheduled for an invasive strategy with timing of angiography to be greater than 24 hours, upstream treatment with clopidogrel or ticagrelor may be considered to reduce major adverse cardiovascular events. 2. Dual antiplatelet therapy with aspirin and an oral P2Y12 inhibitor is indicated for at least 12 months as the default strategy in patients with acute coronary syndrome who are not at high bleeding risk. Several strategies are available to reduce bleeding risk in patients with acute coronary syndromes who have undergone percutaneous coronary intervention and require antiplatelet therapy. A. In patients at risk for gastrointestinal bleeding, a proton pump inhibitor is recommended. B. In patients who have tolerated dual antiplatelet therapy with ticagrelor, transition to ticagrelor monotherapy is recommended greater than or equal to 1 month after percutaneous coronary intervention. Or C. In patients who require long-term anticoagulation, aspirin discontinuation is recommended 1 to 4 weeks after percutaneous coronary intervention, with continued use of AP2Y12 inhibitor, preferably clopidogrel. 3. High-intensity statin therapy is recommended for all patients with acute coronary syndromes and with the option to initiate concurrent ezetimibe. A non-statin lipid-lowering agent is recommended for patients already on maximally tolerated statin who have a low-density lipoprotein cholesterol level of greater than or equal to 70 mg per deciliter. It is reasonable in this high-risk population to further intensify lipid-lowering therapy if the low-density lipoprotein cholesterol level is 55 to less than 70 mg per deciliter and patient is already on a maximally tolerated statin. 4. In patients with non-ST segment elevation, acute coronary syndromes who are at intermediate or high risk of ischemic events, an invasive approach with the intent to proceed with revascularization is recommended during hospitalization to reduce major adverse cardiovascular events. In patients with non-ST segment elevation acute coronary syndromes who are at low risk of ischemic events, a routine invasive or selective invasive approach with further risk stratification is recommended to help identify those who may require revascularization and to reduce major adverse cardiovascular events. 5. Two procedural strategies are recommended in patients with acute coronary syndromes who are undergoing percutaneous coronary intervention. A. Radial approach is preferred over femoral approach in patients with acute coronary syndromes undergoing percutaneous coronary intervention to reduce bleeding, vascular complications, and death. And B. Intracoronary imaging is recommended to guide percutaneous coronary intervention in patients with acute coronary syndromes with complex coronary lesions. 6. A strategy of complete revascularization is recommended in patients with ST segment elevation myocardial infarction or non-ST segment elevation acute coronary syndromes. The choice of revascularization method, coronary artery bypass graft surgery versus multivessel percutaneous coronary intervention in non-ST segment elevation acute coronary syndromes and multivessel disease should be based on the complexity of the coronary artery disease and comorbid conditions. Percutaneous coronary intervention of significant non-culprit stenosis for patients with ST segment elevation myocardial infarction can be performed in a single procedure or staged, with some preference toward performing multivessel percutaneous coronary intervention in a single procedure. In patients with acute coronary syndromes and cardiogenic shock, emergency revascularization of the culprit vessel is indicated. However, routine percutaneous coronary intervention of non-infarct-related arteries at the time of percutaneous coronary intervention is not recommended. 7. Red blood cell transfusion to maintain a hemoglobin of 10 gdl may be reasonable in patients with acute coronary syndromes and acute or chronic anemia who are not actively bleeding. 8. After discharge, focus on secondary prevention is fundamental. A fasting lipid panel is recommended 4 to 8 weeks after initiating or adjusting the dose of lipid-lowering therapy. Referral to cardiac rehabilitation is also recommended, with the option for home-based programs for patients unable or unwilling to attend in person.